All right, everyone. Welcome to week 15's edition of Hot Takes and Hot Cakes. We missed a week last week, but that's okay. We're back, and that means we've got double the takes to get off. Before we get started, Dan, TJ, it's good to be, or should I say Dan and Teddy, it's good to be talking to you guys again. Either one of you have some burning takes you need to get off your chest since, I missed you guys last week.
Yeah, you know what, Matt? Well, a week without seeing that flow really took a toll on me. Just everyone take a look and just marvel at this flow he's got going. I try to do something similar, but I can't get it going.
Same here. I tried to do something similar. I couldn't get it going either. All the hair product in the
Just
world.
wants to go ahead and rub in the fact that me and Matt are on the East Coast and the North, and it's 60 degrees in San Diego. And that's like a fact of the matter.
That's my tagline in case you guys can't see it.
Yeah.
I'm going with
cold, but I gotta say, TJ, not your best in the slogan down there. You've had some funny ones. It's all right, but you can do better than that.
All right, I'm sorry. It's been 2 weeks. I'm rusty, man.
I know.
Right.
15, man. This is the semifinals of the slogans. Let's go. Expect better out of here.
You know what? It's all good, man. And yeah, we did miss a week, and I appreciate all the nice words about my hair and TJ, giving us some trouble about his beautiful weather in San Diego. But I'll say we missed last week, but it's a good thing because that hot ass Twitter Abby that I've got now, that came from what I did last week as opposed to being here with you guys. So all things work out for the good of Matt Harmon. But yeah, anyways, we'll I think we've exhausted this topic enough. So let's move on to the questions that we've got. We've got a few good ones here. We've got a couple on the hashtag, which I'll get into first. If you want to ask us questions, the easiest one is to use the hashtag. That's a really nice way for us to sort through it. We got two questions here from @RainmanAdam. He asks us. Hang on a second. He asks us Marshawn Lynch or Josh Gordon in a PPR. Either of you guys got a strong feeling about that one?
Yeah, I'll step up first just because I have a pretty strong feeling on it. I actually think that if you want to go with it's tough. Okay, so if you want to go with highest ceiling, I'm actually going to go with Gordon. I've been burned by Gordon over the last couple weeks, but I think that Johnny Manziel's game actually and his skill set actually really fits Gordon's type of skill set. So if you look, I was a big Mike Evans guy in the leading up to the draft this year. He was my top receiver over Sammy Watkins. So I watched a lot of his games, and I saw the two games last year where A&M where he and Johnny hooked up for like 278 and 230. Those were separate games, and a lot of them were on plays where Evans worked his way back to the ball, used his body and his speed to get open and then to box out, and just straight go routes that he just got deep on. So I think Johnny actually works better for Evans. And the other thing is I went back and I watched Johnny's one drive against the Bills, which is in my opinion, one of the best defenses in the league this year. The Bills, I think they have the best defensive line besides maybe the Lions, and they've been better since Fairley's been out than the Lions. And he really just had a great drive. He puts a lot of zip on the ball. That's what Hoyer can't do. He really zips it in there, and that really is important for Shanahan's like play action based system where it's like play action and you got to quickly hit the read over the middle or on quick in cuts. And I think that works for Gordon too because Gordon can quickly get open on the in cuts and like the slants and stuff like that. So get him the ball, he'll get it in space, and I think he's going to have a really big game with Johnny Manziel. But if you want to go just the safest play and the guy who's going to have probably the highest floor, if you're in a matchup that you think will be close, I think you go Lynch because Lynch is a guy that it looks like it's a bad matchup on paper versus the 49ers, but the game flow should be on their side in this one because Colin Kaepernick's the quarterback on the 49ers, and they have the offensive line playing really bad this year, and there's going to be a lot of punts, a lot of turnovers, a lot of sacks in that game for the 49ers offense, and Lynch will have a lot of opportunities. But his games this year, if you look at it, Marshawn Lynch, have been very touchdown dependent. He has very few runs over 20, 25 yards this year. He's getting a lot of 100, 120-yard games, and when he doesn't score that touchdown, which has been a lot of the weeks this year, he had one game, 4 touchdown explosion, but aside from that, he's only had a touchdown in 3 games, I think. So he hasn't been a great play. So to me, he's more of a safe play. So that's kind of how I look at it. If you want the high ceiling, you go Gordon. If you want just the floor of a certain amount of points, for sure, you go Lynch.
Yeah, I think Dan pretty much hit the nail on the head. The thing I like about Lynch is when I'm looking at running backs, I really like home favorites, especially heavy home favorites. Seattle's favored by 10. Um, a lot of a lot of a lot of times people don't look at the opposing offense when they're considering their offensive players to start. The Niners' offense has been in shambles. They have the lowest projected point total of the week at 14 points. So when you have offense that's really struggling, it means they're going to be giving their opponents the ball in really favorable field position, and that works out really well for a running back when you're thinking about red zone opportunities and getting the ball in short field position. So that really helps scoring opportunities. Like you said, he's been touchdown dependent, but the Seahawks are in a position where they could have the ball a lot in the red zone and with really short field. So I do like Lynch, but if I'm an underdog or I need a big point total out of that flex spot, then yeah, for sure. Uh, Wide receivers in general, but especially someone like Josh Gordon has that huge ceiling.
Yeah, I love Gordon, but I'm gonna go with Lynch. Either way in this one. I think the Seahawks are gonna kick the shit out of the 49ers. I mean, because they're just such a bad team right now. Like you said, their point total is 14. I feel like that's like the best case scenario that they score 14 points. So I think Lynch is gonna get a lot of run in this game. That the Seahawks passing game doesn't move the offense. It's about Lynch and Wilson kind of running the ball. So I think that's where all the points are going to come from. So I'm going to go with Lynch regardless. But Adam asks us a second question here, and he says, Jay Cutler or Matthew Stafford, which is funny because those two are basically the same person. But in all seriousness, I think I'm going to go with Stafford. Just because that Minnesota defense in Detroit, I feel like is a bit better. Well, it's not like it's. I just trust them more to get like the consistent point total as opposed to Cutler could just totally sink in. When you talk about these two quarterbacks, I think Stafford's like just a tiny bit safer. Although Cutler has a very good matchup, so you can't. It's kind of basically the same thing, but I'm going to go with Stafford. I just feel a little bit better about it. What about you guys?
Yeah, I think those two quarterbacks are actually pretty much a coin flip. So in a
Yeah.
coin flip situation, I kind of just go for the upside, and with that 54 point total against that Saints D, they have the second worst coverage grade on Pro Football Focus. I'm probably gonna go Cutler there.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with TJ here. The Saints just benched, or are believed to have benched Kenny Vaccaro. That means they'll be down to Marcus Bell as their first safety. That will be the fourth safety on the depth chart to start the season. That's the least of their worries. They got Corey White, who's the worst cornerback on Pro Football Focus right now. Keenan Lewis, who's not much better. They can't cover anyone in the middle. The inside linebackers don't cover well. So this is just a team that can't cover at all. So I just think Cutler can do some damage against a team like this. So
Yeah,
I really like Cutler in this. And the
pretty
thing
much.
is, the Bears are not going to stop pouring on points because they've been so embarrassed this season. They'd love to get like a 50-point explosion in.
Yeah, this will probably be a theme throughout the show. I'm pretty much loading up on the Bears period this week. Every position is pretty much in play. Every starter on that offense.
Word. Well, you guys made a lot more sense than I did, so probably listen to those two. Tim Evans, we know Tim, loyal listener of the show. He's always asking us questions. He's got three good ones for us this morning. He asked us Isaiah Crowell or Fred Jackson in a 10-team standard. This is tough because I like both of these players this week. I think they both have pretty good, not like cakewalk matchups, but reasonable matchups. I think Crowell is going to benefit from having Johnny in there, and I think Fred Jackson could catch this could be another game where he catches like 10 passes as he did last week when they played Denver. So since it's a standard, I'm going to go with Crowell. I think he's a better bet to score a rushing touchdown, whereas Jackson gets a lot of his value from the fact that he could catch a lot of passes. So I'm going to go with Crowell in this one. Either of you guys disagree?
That's pretty much exactly what I was going to say. Cleveland ranks 32nd in the league against running backs when adjusted for strength of schedule. So I like Crowell.
I think I see it two ways. I think I like Crowell overall. If gun to a head, I would take Crowell, but I think Jackson is a little bit of a higher floor. Over the last 2 weeks, Jackson has actually gotten back to like his old workhorse role where he plays almost every single snap. Bryce Brown and Dixon have combined for like 15 or snaps or less over the last 2 weeks, so that's a really good sign. And on the other hand, Terrence West stole 14 carries and half the snaps over the past last week, and the week before it was like 15 and half the snaps. So that's really just a timeshare there between West and Crowell. So for that reason, you might want to go with Jackson. But like you guys mentioned, you guys just brought up the 2 big points here on why I like Crowell more. One, the Bengals run defense really weak at the defensive tackle position, and without Vontaze Burfict in the middle, they're just not the same defense. And then on the other hand, I really love what Manziel adds for the running backs here because he freezes up the defensive ends who can't crash. They have to now contain potential Johnny run to the edge, and that just makes things so much easier for Crowell or West or whoever's back there. So yeah, I'm going Crowell as well.
Right on. Okay, another question here from Tim. He asks, he mentions he won 7 tickets to the DraftKings $3 million this week. It's a good week in low money games. He needs some help. Any potential stacks this week? TJ, I'll specifically direct this to you. Any good stacks this week?
Yeah, I mean, like I kind of always point to when I'm looking at my stacks, the first thing I look at is Vegas projected points. I want the quarterbacks that are going to be on the teams with the highest projected point total. I don't necessarily look at the over-unders, which a lot of people do, which is important, but you want to look at the projected points because a lot of times you'll have over-unders, but if you have a team that's a big underdog, they're not projected to score too many points. The team that's projected to score the most points this week is the Baltimore Ravens, actually, against the Jaguars. With Torrey Smith, it looks like he's going to play, but he has that knee issue. I like a Flacco and Steve Smith stack. Mark Sanchez, a lot of people have been on Jordan Matthews. I'm going to a Mark Sanchez, Jeremy Maclin stack because he's going to be locked up on Brandon Carr most of the game. And then another one I really like is Drew Brees, Jimmy Graham stack. A lot of people are going to be off the Saints after their last couple of weeks, especially that game against the Panthers. But they do have the 3rd highest projected point total. They're in the 2nd highest projected scoring game of the week. And Jimmy Graham has been struggling, but Chicago is the worst team in the league against tight ends. And with Graham struggling, a lot of people are going to be avoiding him, so you get a little bit of a contrarian play there in GPP. So those are my top 3 stacks this week.
I actually got a few stacks to add if we're on it. Tim, if you're listening still. Yeah, a few of my favorite stacks are my favorite stack this week, and we've gone over this. TJ and me have talked about this just through the show, but it's Jay Cutler and Marcus Wilson. So won't cost you much. I'm sorry. Cutler's the 8th most expensive the 9th most expensive QB on DraftKings to start the week, and Marcus Wilson is 3,000 the minimum, so that's only 8. So he's the 86th most. So you can really do well there from a price standpoint. And the deal with Wilson is the guy's 6'3", $194. He ran a 4.51. He was one of the top performers in the 3-cone drill, so that's an excellent indicator of like lateral agility and explosion. I really like his talent. And before he was like suspended from Washington State and like whatever happened with him, he had back-to-back seasons as a true freshman and then true sophomore with like 55 catches, 1,000 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And then he had a season with 83 catches for 13, 88, and 12. So it's like elite type numbers. So this is a guy with a ton of upside. That makes them my favorite stack this week. I've obviously talked about why I don't like the Saints defense. Then 2 other things I actually touched on already are Manziel and Gordon. For that one, you're going to pay the 20th most for any quarterback with Manziel. For Gordon, he's like the 12th most. He's still wide receiver 1 fringe range price-wise. But, again, I talked about why I think the connection will be good a little earlier. And then my 3rd favorite stack would be Eli Manning and Odell Beckham. It's still cheap to do this stack, and I don't really see why. It's like Eli's the 20th most expensive, and Beckham is the 4th most expensive. Yeah, Beckham's price has gone up, but Beckham is also just like has a 49,773 3 line over the last like 5 games or 6 games I think it is. So it's like it's kind of ridiculous. This connection isn't really being stopped, and now they get the Redskins defense and Ben McAdoo, Giants offense coordinator, has done a really good job moving Beckham around over the last 3 weeks. So it's like he's not just playing the X anymore. He's moving into the slot, into the backfield. He's going into the flanker. So he'll get David Emerson for some of this game, the Redskins cornerback. and he's one of the 5 worst cornerbacks on Pro Football Focus.
I tweeted about him this week.
Yeah. And even worse, I mean, they have Philip Thomas and Ryan Clark at safety. Clark's already admitted he's going to retire after this year. He's been really bad. Philip Thomas is not good. He's a guy they're trying to just throw in there. So they're just having one of the beat writers for the Redskins wrote an article 2 weeks ago or last week that just like basically it was just screenshots of the 11 times they blew coverage against the Colts, where it's just like they were just guys like six yards open running into and luck just hit them. Like one of the saddest things.
Unreal.
It was just
it's unreal.
Yeah, and then Lyndon Fletcher came out and just blasted Jim Haslett. So it's a mess down there in D.C. Obviously, it is every year.
What a surprise!
Shocking development. But the fact of the matter is, Eli Manning and Odell Beckham can probably take advantage of it.
Yeah, those are really good calls. I'd play anywhere from 10 to 15 GPP lineups on each side, so I'll have stacks of all those stacks that you mentioned. I'll have some piece of. We'll probably touch on Marcus Wilson a bit more because he's probably the best value play across all sites this week. His minimum salary on both sites, and just touching on his college stats one more time. Something we look for from potential breakout receivers is when they broke out in college. He broke out at 18 years old, which is when he had over 30% of the market share of targets. And then that season you talked about with 12 touchdowns, he accounted for 40% of his team's touchdowns that year, which is a huge number, especially for a Pac-12 team.
Right.
Usually when you see those huge numbers, it's from those mid-majors where they just have one dominant player. But to be on a major conference team and have that high of a market share of touchdowns is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, also, by the way, I think I just got the notification that Julio Jones is officially out today, so...
all the Harry Douglas.
Oh, gross. Disgusting. But anyways.
Cheap.
Yeah, I know.
Value.
But he is Harry Douglas.
Yeah, well...
I was on the Two Monks podcast this week, and Ryan Forbes was saying that you can easily turn Harry Douglas's name into some sort of sexual move, like...
Harry
After you give him a dirty Sanchez, you give him a Harry Douglas, something like that.
I think it was J.D. Beckler and Fantasy Douche changed Charles Johnson's name to Minnesota Johnson this week, and they said it sounds like a 80s porn star name. Just call him Minnesota Johnson.
Yeah, basically.
But onto a football talk. Now that Julio Jones is out, I posted the Harry Douglas game splits with and without Julio, since Julio's been on the Falcons. In 38 games with Julio, Harry Douglas has averaged 5.3 fantasy points with just under 3 receptions, just under 1 touchdown. 0.08 touchdowns per game, and just under 5 targets for 33 yards. With Julio out 15 games, he's averaged 11 fantasy points, 5.5 receptions, 0.2 touchdowns, 8.3 targets, and 70.1 yards. So almost double all the way across the board, and almost triple in yardage.
I actually like the call there, TJ. Those are great stats. Those back it up. But I think we've all watched what Harry Douglas kind of does sometimes when Julio is out or Roddy's out. My only worry there is that he's got this toe injury that he kind of just lugged his way through practice this week because they have no other bodies to put at receiver, and I just worry that he's not going to have this normal explosion.
Yeah. That's a really fair point. And then in season long, if you're this far into the playoffs, you probably have better options. But in daily, he's super cheap and he gives you a lot of flexibility. So I'm swapping him in right now for Kenny Stills on one side and Steve Smith on DraftKings, just because it frees you up to do a little more with your team. So from a value point of view, it works out pretty well.
No doubt. All right, we'll keep moving along here. One more question here from Tim. He asked us he needs, pick 2 of these guys for flex in a 12-team PPR. Isaiah Crowell, Kelvin Benjamin, Mike Evans. Dan, which 2 are you picking? Who are you sitting?
Wow. All right, so I'm definitely playing Mike Evans no matter what. He's the one play above all of the other 2 that you just can't bench regardless of matchup or anything. If you look back, even against the Detroit defense, actually it's surprisingly been not as great against receivers for some reason. He still had a really good game. And he's got the Panthers D that's actually played a little better recently. Is that right, Matt?
Yes, we'll talk
Yeah.
about that more later.
Did all Josh Norman just playing really well?
No, it's
The
like I
front.
said, we'll talk about more later, but
Okay,
it's
we will. But
seven.
anyway, Panthers have played a little better, so it's not as good a matchup as it once was, but it's still a good enough matchup. And then for the other two, I'm going to go Benjamin over Crowell in a PPR. I talked about why I like Crowell's upside, but Benjamin actually had a really good game with Derek Anderson in his one start earlier this season. Was it like 4 catches for 93 and a touchdown, Matt?
Yeah, it was week 1.
And
Something like that.
Game couldn't play. And I think he also had like 10 targets or some ridiculous target number. So
Yeah.
I think
It's against the same team too. It was against the Bucs.
It was week 1, right?
Yes, sir. Week 1.
So I think Anderson just kind of load him up and just unload it at Benjamin. So I like Benjamin in this one. Benjamin and Evans. You guys see it differently?
No, I'm kind of with you. I talked about this a few other places this week where I could see this game kind of. It could easily be like 10-7 boring snooze fest game, but it could definitely be one of those contests where both of them have pretty good matchups in the secondary. Both of these rookie wide receivers can put up big numbers. They're ones that I like having both of them in my lineup. Neither defense really has the players to contain someone with their size and skill set, as receivers.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. Just touching on Kelvin Benjamin, that week 1 he had 8 targets, 6 receptions, a touchdown, 92 yards. Anderson has played some in 4 games this year, and the 4 games that he's been in, Benjamin has 8 targets, 11 targets, 9 targets, 6 targets. So I think he's going to look Kelvin Benjamin's way a lot this week.
Yeah, just to plug myself real quick because I can't help myself. I wrote for a Black and Blue Review this week about what the Panthers kind of need and can expect from Derek Anderson this week. And one of the things that I hit on was, throughout his career, Anderson's been the type of guy who just leans on his best target, and that's pretty much Benjamin on the Panthers, outside of Greg Olsen. So, he threw it up to Braylon Edwards in Cleveland. He threw it up to Larry Fitzgerald when he was in Arizona. He's a bit better of a player independently than he was in those spots now, but you should expect him to just target the hell out of Benjamin again. So, yeah, feel free to fire him up. But we'll keep moving here on a few more questions. These ones come in from Michael Stepany. He asks us, LeGarrette Blount or Ingram in the flex spot, and then for a wide receiver 2, Moncrief Stills or Charles Johnson. So we just got to pick Blount or Ingram. I'm going to go Blount, and then for the wide receivers, I'm going to go with that's tough, but I think I'm going to go with Kenny Stills out of those 3 options. I think he has best matchup, and that game could get out of hand with a lot of points. And, as far as Moncrief, could definitely have a big game. But Charles Johnson, I think, has the least attractive matchup. What do you guys think?
I'm definitely going Blount over Ingram, just because for me that Saints backfield, I've been monitoring every backfield, and that's one that really adheres to the game flow ever since Pierre Thomas has come back. So when the Saints are ahead or when they're in the game, Ingram will see most of the snaps, but when they fall behind, he's kind of a done type guy. He had 17 snaps last week against the Panthers. That's not something you ever want to get in your lineup. And I think they'll fall behind to the Bears. As crazy as it might sound, because the Bears haven't really gotten a huge lead on anyone. I just don't like the Saints team, and I really just don't like their defense. And again, Terran Armstead's out, and Drew Brees has just been classically much worse when either his left tackle or right tackle have been injured. A few weeks ago when Zach Strief was out, he was just horrible. I forgot who it was against. It might have been the Niners, and he just looked not himself. So he needs some pocket. He really does, in my opinion, at least, even though he can make some plays on the run. Anyway, that's why I like that. And then name the receivers again, Matt.
Charles Johnson, Dante Moncrief, and Kenny Stills.
Wow. Yeah. So this is one where I think I'll go with Stills, just like you did. Johnson's the #1 target in Minnesota, and that's nice, but I just don't like them to move the ball too much against the Lions with Bridgewater and that offensive line. So I'll go with a guy like Stills, who gets the Bears secondary, another really bad secondary, and they might be in catch-up mode. Stills is a good player, in my opinion. I really like his talent. I wrote a lot about him in the offseason. He just never got the opportunity. He had a bad week last week, but so did everyone on the Saints. The Panthers really got to them, so I think he'll have a bounce back week. I'm going Stills and Blunt.
Yeah, I agree. When you're trying to decide between those receivers, you're really just looking for upside. None of those guys are going to give you super consistent production, and I think Stills has the most upside in that high scoring game.
Yeah, no doubt. And Michael asked us another question. Streaming defense for Week 15: Patriots, Browns, Titans, Panthers. I'm going to go with Panthers in this one. I think they've got the best matchup. Their defense is playing well. The front seven is really coming together as it should have all year. Josh Norman has added a lot of consistency at cornerback, which they desperately needed. And the Bucs' offensive line is probably one of the worst, 2 or 3 in the league. So I like the Panthers' defense to definitely get some big plays and maybe even score against the Buccaneers. So they're the one I'm going to pick out of these 4. Either of you guys go in a different way.
Homer pick. Sorry, what?
Whatever. I don't even. No. I'm not going to tolerate that sort of talk because I don't even care about the Panthers.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm right there with you with Panthers. I do just little custom scores to try to target my my DFS defensive targets. Each week I have the Panthers with the 5th highest grade of the week against Tampa Bay at home. They're favored by 5.5. They're projected to give up the 3rd lowest total of the week. Panthers are 27th in the league when adjusted for strength of schedule in points allowed to opposing defense and special teams, and they have the worst pass block grade on Pro Football Focus. Also, give up sacks on 9.3% of quarterback dropbacks, which is the 4th highest rate in the league. So it looks like a lot of quarterback pressure, a lot of inconsistent quarterback throws, which means sacks and turnovers with a big point spread at home. So all the Panthers for me.
Yeah, I can see the Panthers making a lot of sense, and I think they have the most upside here. But I'm going to go with the Patriots because I'll tell you what, I can see something weird happening in this Panthers-Bucks game where the Bucks have the control. A couple weeks ago, I thought the Panthers would beat the Vikings. I played their defense against the Vikings and was sorely disappointed. But for me, I haven't liked what I've seen from this Dolphins offense since their offensive line has gotten injured. Brandon Albert, his injury at left tackle was key and devastating for them. They also lost Samson Sattel. They've had to shuffle around. And I think this Patriots D is downright one of the 5 best in the NFL. Chandler Jones is likely to make his return this week. He'll probably be a sub-package player. We're playing only about 30 snaps, but he'll come in, get some good pressures. Akeem Ayers has been a huge addition for them at the trade deadline. They're getting pressure. They're really covering well with Revis, Browner, and their safeties back there. I think Tannehill will throw a few interceptions. I think there could be a special teams touchdown. There always could be, in my opinion, with this Patriots team. To me, there's a lot upside too with the Patriots, and they could really take advantage of this Dolphins offensive line. And especially because the Dolphins beat them in that Week 1 matchup, I feel like, they're really motivated for this one. As stupid as that narrative might sound, for the Patriots, the only team
man, always follow narratives.
Well, for the Patriots, I believe it, because Belichick has a weird way of getting his players motivated. I'm rolling with the Patriots in this one.
Good stuff. All right. We got 2 more questions we're gonna get to here, and these both come from the Sportable card before we start running through the matchups. Need help? 1-point PPR. He's got DeMarco Murray, C.J. Anderson, LaShawn McCoy, and Fred Jackson. That's a lot of good running backs. Basically, pick 3 out of there. I'm gonna go with the three studs, in my opinion, and that's Murray, CJ, and LaShawn McCoy. So do you guys think anything differently there?
No, don't get cute. My take.
Yep.
Who was the 4th option?
Fred Jackson.
Oh yeah, I'm with you guys.
Yeah.
Studs.
All right. Yep. Yeah, definitely. If you're still in play, that means you're in like a championship or in the semifinals. So definitely don't get cute. And then at wide receiver, he's got DeAndre Hopkins, Kenny Stills, Brandon LaFell, Jarvis Landry, Dante Moncrief, and then he needs to start 2 of those. I'm going to go with Hopkins and Stills. I don't think this is a big Brandon LaFell week, and I'm not really so high on Jarvis Landry this week. So I'm going to go with Hopkins and Stills out of those 2.
Yeah, Landry's going to get shattered by Revis, they say. So that's obviously a no-go.
Yeah.
Buffel is really hit or miss and really inconsistent. The only guys I think you can go with there are Stills and who's the top guy? Oh yeah, and Hopkins, of course.
Hopkins.
Yeah, for sure.
My expert analysis is I agree.
Nice. And Baltimore or Detroit defense this week, boys?
For me, I'm all over Baltimore. They're my favorite defense of the week. TJ can go into a little bit why with the Vegas points. They're a huge favorite. I think game flow will be on their side. A key thing here is that not only does Bortles commit turnovers, I think the Jaguars take the most sacks in the league or something. I got to look that stat up. I saw it earlier this week. But it really works well in this matchup because Baltimore has the best pass rush grade on Pro Football Focus. They've generated the most total pressures this season. So I love this matchup. I can't not play Baltimore in my daily league. So that's just me. I'm all in. I think it's going to be a big 25-point week for them.
Right on. Okay, last question here on the Sportable card. I just lost it. Where did it go? There it is. I need to start 2 wide receivers in a PPR league or a half-point PPR league. Josh Gordon, Roddy White, Kenny Stills, or Vincent Jackson. And I think this is Jackie Interia. She's asking the questions, and she says, "I need to be told what to do so I don't overthink it," which is nice. That's a nice little straight-up way of saying it. So we've got 4 options. We need to pick 2. Josh Gordon, Roddy White, Kenny Stills, or Vincent Jackson. What do you guys think?
Definitely Gordon for me. We talked earlier about why we're going with that, or I'm going with that. And the other ones are kind of tough. Kenny Stills, Roddy, or VJax. So, I mean, Stills we've talked about in depth here. So VJax to me is one of the hardest players to kind of deal with this season. I had him in one league and he was gross. So he had a big week last week. I don't really know how that's easy. He's had weird, like, 17 target, 10 reception type weeks, like 2 of the past 5 or 6, I think it was. So, like, I don't know how you can predict that. It's like rolling a dice in craps. So this week he has a, on paper, decent matchup, especially if Josh Norman defends Mike Evans. I don't really know. Does Norman play one side only? Matt?
It depends. They kind of had him shadow Julio, but other than that, normally he just plays one side. So I think he'll see a little bit of both of them.
Okay, so there's that. This is a tough one, I think. So yeah, definitely Gordon, and I think I'd actually go with. And who was the other guy? VJax. Oh, Roddy. Yeah, Roddy. I think I'd probably go Gordon and Roddy, even though Roddy's a little hurt, obviously. There's going to be a lot of volume in that game against the Steelers and probably some red zone targets for him, and he is essentially the number 1 there. So, yeah, I'd go Roddy Gordon.
Yeah, I'm going that way too.
Yeah, I agree. Even with the news of Julio being out, that point total has barely moved, just 1 point. So if Vegas still likes the game to be high scoring, I still like the game to be high scoring. So give me Roddy.
Cool. All right, let's run through the games real quick. I'll take a team, Dan will take a team, and then TJ will give you his fiery hot daily takes at the end there. So first one we'll go through is Steelers at Falcons. On the Steelers side, it's pretty easy. You know, who you're going to start. Le'Veon Bell could easily be the top scoring player this week. Falcons can't stop the run. They spent all that money on players that theoretically could stop the run, and we just saw, the Packers just relentlessly tear them up on Sunday. So Bell could easily be the top scoring player this week. It's well worth paying up for him on both DFS sites. I like Ben this week. I like Brown. All those guys should get their play. Martavis Bryant's a pretty good upside, like GPP tournament type play. Because he could easily break a long touchdown off against these corners. Desmond Trufant doesn't really do a lot of. Well, it's kind of weird how they use him, but I don't think he's gonna shadow either Brown or Martavius. Both those guys should see plenty of other corners. So I think all those Steelers are good plays this week. Dan, what do you think on the Atlanta side?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the issue for me, and I talked about this earlier, is the health of Harry Douglas and Roddy White. So if they're really going out there and not playing at their full strength, will that entire offense take a major hit? And I think it could, but the fact of the matter is, they are at home here in the Dome, where they tend to play much better. And the Steelers just haven't had the secondary to really compete this season. They tried to put Ike Taylor back in there last week. It was one of the saddest things I've seen in a long time. I predicted that too. I had AJ in every single GP, and I wrote about him that week. That was one of the ones I got right. But I don't even consider that like a good call by me. I just consider that like obvious. Like
it's time to take that dog out back and.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, really. Wow, that shoot him in the.
Not that I actually think Ike Taylor should be shot, but I mean.
Yeah, but at the same time.
In a lineup sense only.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough, Matt. Anyway, yeah. So, it's a battle. It's a battle of really bad secondary versus offensive lines playing pretty bad for the Falcons, playing a little better recently, and just some injuries at receiver. So, it's tough for me, but I'd probably roll out both Douglas, Roddy, Matt Ryan there. I've been saying it all year. I don't go with Steven Jackson. I know he's had a couple touchdowns lately, and he's kind of looked a little much better and fresher, but he's so touchdown dependent for me. He only plays like 40 to 45% of the snaps every week for that team. They just mix in Rodgers and Freeman a lot. So I just don't like guys with low volume. Low volume. So that's my take on that team.
TJ.
From a daily perspective, Antonio and Le'Veon aren't necessarily huge values, but they're amazing plays. The way everything kind of shook out this week with what I think is a lot of really good mid-price and cheap quarterback options, and if you are wise enough to put Marcus Wilson in all your cash game lineups, which I think you should be doing, you can afford to put some top players in there. So I have Le'Veon in most of my cash game lineups. On the Falcons side of the ball, we already touched on Harry Douglas. I think he's a really good value. He's 5,800 on FanDuel, and I believe 4,200 on DraftKings. And then Roddy's also we're sticking in there. So I think pretty much those are the guys in play in daily. If you want to throw Matt Ryan into a GPP, I don't mind it. I liked him as a cash game option with if Julio would have been playing, but there's just so many good options this week in similar price range. Even though the matchup's really good, I just think there's a lot of quarterbacks with a lot more upside than Ryan with Julio out. So I'm probably not rolling out Ryan in any cash games anymore, but I wouldn't hate it if you did.
Right on. Okay, moving along. The next game, Washington at New York Giants. No, don't play any Washington players.
Don't play.
It's pretty much that simple. Don't play any Washington players. Their defense is so bad, so we can let Dan go ahead and tell you how you should play every New York Giants player. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't go too crazy as to say that. TJ kind of wrote about it this week why Larry Donnell's a nice value play for daily leagues. Redskins are really bad against tight ends. And then if you look back, Donnell had a really big game against the Redskins the first time around. But obviously you roll out Odell Beckham. I don't think you touch another Giants receiver here. And then you obviously roll out Eli Manning. I think he's good value in daily leagues, and he torched up the Redskins to 30-plus fantasy points their first matchup. But I would say this. I would not touch the Giants' running back situation right now. It's been back and forth this week as far as if Jennings or Andre Williams is going to get the carries this week. I think it's going to end up in some kind of split, some weird split. So I don't really want to go with either one there. They don't really particularly have great values on FanDuel. I looked at them. So, and that's just one daily league. I'm sure DraftKings is pretty similar. There might be something weird on DraftKings because they're kind of reactionary. But either way, I'm not touching that.
Yo, Dan, let me ask you. You're not going to play Ruben Randall, the force field, for 3,900 on DraftKings?
I'm never going to play Ruben Randall on any league or anything ever. I'm hoping Ruben Randall has no spot on the roster at the end of the season.
I'm playing Ruben Randall in a couple places, and it's not because Ruben Randall's
good. Those are cash games or something, Matt, because there's zero. The guy has made 0 plays all season. I'm talking about plays, just balls that could be caught or could be turned into a spectacular, not even a spectacular play, a pretty good play. You can't make any of those plays.
He's terrible. He's a bad player, but he might still be a better player than some of those Washington cornerbacks, and he could just fall ass backwards into a touchdown. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I half jokingly tweeted out this week, Ruben Randall's really bad, but David Amerson's way worse.
Yeah.
And I think Matt said something about he's going down that rabbit hole this week.
Oh yeah, I'm
Um,
following. I'm
Nice.
following that rabbit hole.
yeah.
Matt
Um,
may be nice, but I'm just telling you guys I would avoid that.
no,
We'll find out next week who's right.
I'm not throwing Ruben Randall out in it. I tweeted out when I was looking at cornerback matchups this week, but I'm not rolling Ruben Randall out anywhere. You guys pretty much touched on it. Eli's in play in both cash games and GPPs. We know how good Odell Beckham is, how good that matchup is. Larry Donnell is the guy that people might kind of shy off of, but after Gronk, I mean, you can't even really put Jimmy Graham in that Gronk category the way he's been playing lately. After Gronk, it's a pretty steep decline at tight end, and the move in dailies has been pretty much to punt the position if you're not going with Gronk. Washington's 31st in the league in fantasy points allowed to tight ends when adjusted for strength of schedule. Larry Donnell is averaging over 6 targets per game and over and 1.5 red zone targets per game, and the Redskins have allowed 2 touchdowns in back-to-back games to tight ends.
All right. Well, move on to, and also those touchdowns that they've allowed to been to the really sexy combination of Kobe Fleener and Jared Cook. So I
I
mean,
love me
yeah.
some Jared.
But anyways, we'll move on to the next game. Dolphins at Patriots. Dolphins side, it's pretty straightforward. That's another one where I'm not really excited to play anybody. I know Dan said that Landry could see a lot of Revis, which obviously takes him completely out of the picture. Wallace then, I mean, that seems kind of odd because Wallace could really wreck a cornerback like Brandon Browner, who's more like a bigger physical guy. But I'm not really interested in following that. Lamar Miller is always a decent play because he's a starting running back, but his ceiling is kind of limited. They don't give him a ton of carries. This matchup's not like overwhelmingly good or anything. So honestly, this is another offense where I don't really want to play anybody. What about New England, Dan?
Yeah, I was saying. Oh yeah, I agree with you. Obviously on the Dolphins side of the ball. Before I was saying why I play the Patriots defense, but yeah, for this one, Edelman's been injured all week. He's now going to play. He's a little hurt. I've seen these weird reports all week, all season. I mean, and then he's played. So I'd still probably roll with a guy like Edelman in PPR type leagues. I still trust him what he can do. He's a big part of the game plan every week. I'm not as big on Gronk and Brady as others might be this week. I think the Dolphins have a really good game plan every time they play the Patriots, and especially now that they have the personnel to do it with Brent Grimes back there at corner, with their pass rush with Wake and the guys that really get after the quarterback. So I think that we'll see a surprisingly defensive game in this one. I think the Patriots will win by a touchdown or two, or maybe a touchdown and a field goal, and they'll have control of the whole game, but it'll be a lot of those like long type drives where they're running the ball a lot and keeping the clock moving. So I'm actually off all these players in daily leagues this week.
The only guy I'm touching in dailies is Gronk, just because, regardless of matchup, he provides that high floor. He has double-digit targets in 4 of his last 5 games. He averages almost 9 targets per game on the year and over 1 red zone target per game. The Patriots still have a point total projected just a touch under 28 points, so there should be some scoring there. If you want, like I said, if you want to put tight end, I don't mind it at all. I just think in cash games where you're looking for that high floor, I'd rather play Gronk than some top price receivers where you're going to be paying close to something like $9,000 for a top price receiver. You can get Gronk $7,600 on FanDuel. FanDuel and DraftKings, he's actually happens to be the same price. So you get a huge discount on Gronk, regardless of matchup, compared to those top receivers, and he provides you with that same floor and ceiling. Just like I said, just the way the prices shake out this week, I think you can afford it. But he is the only guy that I would play in this game.
Yeah, right on. Moving along to the next game, and I keep drawing this is Raiders and Chiefs, and I keep drawing the away teams, which are some easy ones to just not play any players, it looks like. And Raiders at Chiefs, I'm going to say yes to Latavius Murray in a lot of places. I think the matchup is pretty good. The Chiefs' defense is actually really bad against defending the run, and we've seen it play out against Latavius Murray and C.J. Anderson lately. Those touchdowns have finally been kind of coming. And so I'm saying yes to Murray at 4,000 on DraftKings and a pretty good price on FanDuel too. I think it's like 65 or a little, maybe even less than that. So yeah, Murray's the one guy I'm playing. Everybody else, nah, no thank you. I think this could be a down week for Derek Carr. One of those receivers might come through, but I'm not going to play the guessing game on it. So yeah, say yes to Latavius Murray and keep it moving.
Yeah, I think you got to go with Jamal on the other side of the ball. Obviously, there's no question there. And then the other thing is, will Kelsey be able to repeat? Because he's been really frustrating. Before his really good week last week, he had like 2.572. I think I was looking at the box score 2 days, his Yahoo thing 2 days ago. So he was under 10 points for like 4 straight weeks, which makes him really risky. You'd hope that maybe Reed has finally realized, okay, let's move the ball through the air through Kelsey. But it's so hard to predict if he actually has. So for me, I am going to go with Kelsey. I'll throw this question to you guys, DJ and Matt. In your if you're in the semifinals of a big home league, a lot on the line, would you go Travis Kelsey, Kobe Fleener, or Jordan Cameron or Larry Donnell at tight end?
Oof.
Jesus.
I'm going to throw Fleener out just because I don't know.
Yeah.
I think eventually they're
threw
going
him out
to
immediately. It's really between the other three.
I'm probably going Donnell.
Wow.
I'm probably going to go with Cameron.
Wow. So I have Kelsey slotted in right now, so we're all three kind of different right now.
I mean, I love Kelsey, man, and totally go ahead and do that, but right.
You sound so confident. Just like have fun.
I don't know what to say about it because, theoretically he should be like good to go after last week, but God, I mean,
I know, it's so frustrating. I feel like Cameron and Donnell are like the same thing.
Yeah. It's like you're just hoping they score a touchdown, and both of them have like good enough matchups to do so. But
Appreciate the take.
yeah, appreciate all the confidence we just threw your way. Well, don't play Kobe Fleener. We're all confident.
Yeah, we're all gonna give you guys a little advice. Don't play Kobe.
Yeah, it was cute there for a few weeks, but stop that. All right, so I think we covered that one pretty well.
Yeah, from a daily point of view, just the two running backs, Latavius and Jamal. It's probably going to be hard to get Jamal in your cash game lineups just because the top running backs all have such good matchups. I mean, it's just the fact that he's a little injured makes me want to be on Bell, Le'Veon Bell, DeMarco Murray, Matt Forte Moore because they're all pretty priced pretty similarly. But Jamal's going to make for a nice GPP pivot if you can get him in there because everyone else is going to be on those guys and they're all elite backs, so any of them could blow up.
Man, I never have enough Jamal in daily leagues. Every time he scores 2 touchdowns in a game, I'm like, oh shit, I didn't have him in any lineups. I don't know why I always overlook him. I'm gonna go sub him into some lineups right now.
Well, I mean, Alex Smith is his quarterback, so there's that.
Yeah, right. It is. Good point. Anyways, we'll move on to the next game here. Texans at Colts. On the Houston side, man, is Vontae Davis playing? Do we know that yet? Is he in or is he out?
He's probable. I think he's going to go.
Okay. Well, that kind of makes things. What about Andre Johnson?
Andre Johnson, still question. I don't think I've seen an update on him.
Still game time on. Oh, Andre Johnson's out.
Okay. Well, he's pretty bad at this point in his career, anyways. So
he gets so many targets.
I know, but so hopefully, if you're going to follow that logic, then hopefully those are going to go to Mr. Hopkins, and so I still like it. Even if Vontae is playing, it kind of limits what could have been a really high ceiling, but I like Hopkins in this game, especially if Johnson's out. He's going to get a lot of those targets. So I don't mind that. I'm not going to play Fitzpatrick. I don't think it's that good of a matchup through the air with Davis in there. But I do think it's a good week to pay up for Foster. He's just wrecked the Colts throughout his career. Really no reason that should change. And then, I'm pretty much not going to put anybody else on the Houston side of my lineup. Dan, what are you doing with the Colts offense this week?
You can't not play T.Y. Hilton at this point. He just gets behind defenses, so he's obviously in.
That's another like narrative street thing. He has kicked the shit out of the Texans every time he's played them in his career.
Yeah, it's another good point. At running back, I think at this point you have to just go with Boom Herron over Trent Richardson. I think they're finally making the move. Last week, Herron had 18 more snaps than Richardson. That was the first time. The week before, it was more of an even split. I think they're finally starting to realize it's time to put Richardson on the bench, and not worry about that draft pick that they gave up because there's no way to get that back now. So I'd go with Herron. I'd go with Hilton. A tight end, it's too much. I wouldn't go with Allen or Fleener just based on what we talked about earlier. There's just too much volatility there. And then it's like, do you want to roll with Moncrief? He's finally getting starter snaps. He hasn't seen the targets. I think that's too risky for me to go with Moncrief, especially in the playoffs right now. There's some upside, obviously, in tourneys for daily leagues, but that's about it for me for the Colts side of the ball.
And then from a daily point of view, Hopkins is a rough one. He's kind of in that mid wide receiver price range. With Vontae Davis playing, there's probably going to be better options, even though Andre Johnson's going to be out. So I'm probably not putting him in any cash games. I hate just saying, oh, he's worth a GPP play because that's kind of cheap, easy analysis. But
Fantasy Douche said that this week too. I like that.
Did he? When you're if you're talking about someone like Marquise Lee and you say, oh, he's just a GPP play, then that's kind of, you're kind of not really doing it justice. But when it's someone like Hopkins, it's pretty clear that he has huge upside. So it's more just I don't like him in cash games. On the other side of the ball, if I'm paying up for a wide receiver this week, I'm paying for T.Y. Hilton. Houston is the worst team in the league against wide receivers when adjusted for strength of schedule, and they also are the worst team in the league versus number one wide receivers according to Fantasy Outsiders, which is always one of my favorite stats to look at. So I really like T.Y. Hilton, and if I'm paying up for wide receiver, he's my guy this week.
Right on. Yeah, it's a pretty easy week to go with Hilton. Jaguars at Ravens. God, Jags. I don't hate play. I actually threw out a couple Blake Bortles lineups this week just because that Ravens secondary is so bad. They just signed Antoine Cason, who couldn't even hack it with Carolina.
Oh,
It's
so
yeah,
bad.
man. It's so bad. Dude, it's terrible. So that Raven, and he's probably gonna play right away because they've just been so banged up at cornerback. So one of those Jags receivers could get behind the defense in Baltimore, but I don't know who it's going to be. I hate Marquise Lee, so I'm not going to tell you to play him. Allen Hurns could score like a weird long touchdown, but I think Bortles has been better on the road than he has been at home. I could see him. He could easily get sacked 7 times, but he could have a pretty decent game, and he's super cheap. There's obviously other cheap quarterbacks I like better, but I threw out I'll admit my name is Matt Harmon, and I threw out a couple of Blake Bortles lineups this week. So you can come back to me when I get 8 points for the quarterback position, if I'm lucky. But anyway, so yeah, it's not much going on. Don't play any Jaguars running backs. But it wasn't a good matchup anyways, and with Shoelace out of the picture, don't go back to Toby Gerhart or whatever.
You don't want to play Toby Gerhart?
No, I don't.
Why?
Because his name is Toby. Yeah. Oh man.
Point actually.
What a disappointment that was. But anyways, yeah. So I'm not playing anybody from the Jaguars offense. Honestly, I played Bortles in a couple of tournaments just for sickness' sake. But yeah, this is another one where I'm not playing anybody. What are you doing on Baltimore's side, Dan?
Yeah, again, I love their defense. It's my favorite defensive play this week. I can't not play them. Looking at a 20-plus point week, so you can call me out on that next week if I'm wrong. On the other side of it, I really love the other guy I just want really to highlight in this one is Justin Forsett. Forsett has been so good this year. He's having like a revolutionary year for his career as a journeyman. But the fact of the matter is, Baltimore has the second best run blocking unit in the league according to Pro Football Focus. They're dominant up front. They're healthy now on the offensive line. And the Jaguars have one of the 5 worst run defense, so this is just a perfect matchup for Forsett. Also, Taliaferro's injured. He's not going to play, so they just have Pierce behind him. So I think Forsett will see one of his bigger workloads. He's healthier than he's been in recent weeks. So I really like him as one of my favorite plays this week.
Nice.
Yeah, I love Forsett. I wrote him up this week as one of my top values in pretty much every write-up I did. Like I said earlier, I love running backs that are heavy home favorites. They're favored by 14 at home. They have the highest highest projected point total of the league. Forset's averaging just a touch over 21 touches per game over the last since week 10, and he has the third highest percent of his team's workload, only behind DeMarco, Le'Veon Bell, and Matt Forte since week 10. So they're running their offense through him, and they're not being shy about it. So I really, really like Forsett in daily this week. And then, I mean, you got to roll Steve Smith out if you're looking for a cheap wide receiver. I don't think Torrey Smith is going to be a factor with that sprained knee, and Smith's price attractive on both sites. 4,800, I believe, on DraftKings, and on FanDuel he is 6,800, so a little more expensive on FanDuel, but really nice price on DraftKings.
Right on. Let's kind of go rapid fire through the rest of the games. Bills and Packers, pretty easy one to me. Fred Jackson. I'll play him if it's a PPR league, and then I'll play all my Packers. Anybody disagree?
I'm with you there.
Dan, are you alive over there? Okay, I don't.
The question.
Good talk, Dan.
I said what? I mean, Packers and Bills. I think TJ and I said we'll play Fred Jackson in a PPR league, but that's about it, and we'll play all our Packers.
Yeah, there's not much to really touch on in this one. Obviously, the one question is what's going to happen with Lacey and Starks. Could be a time split there. That's why I won't invest in them in daily. But I think you got to go with Lacey if you got both. If you're an owner and you're in a long-term league and you've got both and you're wondering what to do, you just got to go with the guy who's got you here.
Yeah, agree. Bucks, Panthers. Expect Derek Anderson to lean on Kelvin Benjamin. He'll throw it up. He has no problems with that. Stewart should be relied upon heavily after a really great week. He's been the best running back on the team all along, so that shouldn't surprise anybody. And I'm pretty much going to play Mike Evans on Tampa Bay's side. That's about it.
Yeah, I don't see too much different there. We've touched on this matchup a lot during the show, so there's not too much more to say.
Yeah, I like the Panthers defense. Don't forget about Jonathan Stewart if you're looking for a cheap running back this week. He's going to get all the touches again. And then Derek Anderson is minimum salary on FanDuel, so if you really want to open up some things for the rest of your lineup, we've seen the minimum salary work really well this year. Thinking back to Sean Hill and Ryan Fitzpatrick with that huge week, obviously, but that minimum price QB with a good matchup is a really nice play in dailies, even in cash.
Yeah, no doubt. Bengals and Browns. Johnny Manziel. I'm playing him. I'm sure you guys are too. His rushing just gives you I think he's got a safe floor. It's a good matchup. Those Bengals linebackers are terrible. Vontaze Burfict's not going to play. So, it's really the type of game where he could make those guys pay on the ground. And, we know he opens up everything for the rest of the offense. I'm not so sure, like Dan brought this up, and I know a lot of people think this too, that he's going to be an easy, great fit with Josh Gordon. He kind of was really great with Evans, but I don't see those two as the same player, but that's kind of a long discussion. But, Gordon is still a fine play, and I think Manziel should help him more than Hoyer did, Hoyer didn't help him at all, but Correll's a pretty easy play with Manziel back there. What are you doing on Bengals side, guys?
Some people have worried about playing A.J. Green because of Joe Hayden, but you look at their matchup over the course of their history in the league, facing off against each other. It's been up and down. Green's had some big games. He's been limited, so I'm not jumping off board on him. And the big thing is now that Hill has the starting role, and Hugh Jackson said he wants to lean on one running back, I think Jeremy Hill's a good play against this Browns run defense, minus Phil Taylor and minus all the guys that have been injured on there.
Yeah, from a daily perspective, I like both the running backs on DraftKings. Both their prices are really fair for starting running backs. Jeremy Hill is only 4,300. Isaiah Crowell is only 4,900. We've talked about Johnny Football. Everyone has all week. You don't need me to tell you that he's a good play. And then that's pretty much it for the offenses. There's not too many glaring receivers. A.J. Green and Josh Gordon are always going to be in play, but there's nothing that jumps off the page that makes them must-play daily picks this week.
Sounds about right. Next game we've got is Vikings at Lions. This is one on the Minnesota side. Charles Johnson's really the only one who's in play, and if you're in a season-long league, just because he's kind of the best player on that offense right now, I wrote him up for reception perception. This week, I'm actually about to tweet that article out if anybody wants to go read it. He's the only one I'd really consider playing, and honestly, it's not a good matchup, so probably don't want to do that anyways. Vikings, I'm just kind of passing on this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're pretty spot on there. The Broncos, there's not too much. I mean, I'm sorry, the Lions, there's not too much to say here. You got to play a guy like Joyk, who's looked more explosive in recent weeks. He's looked better the past 4 weeks. He's kind of recovering from that offseason knee surgery and starting to get his explosion back. And the fact of the matter is, with Calvin back, the Lions are now a top offense again, so he has a lot of scoring opportunities down there. So I really like Joyk in this one. That's probably my favorite, my hottest take on this one.
Oh yeah, that's a good take too.
100% with you there. I think Joyk's going to be overlooked on dailies this week with all of the top guys having really, really nice nice matchups. So in your GPPs, I really like Joyk, especially where you probably want to load up on your expensive receivers if you need a cheaper running back and you can't roll out Forte or Murray or something in a GPP. Joyk's a really nice option actually. I'm building my GPP lineups for FanDuel right now, and he's anchoring a bunch of those lineups. He's only 7,500 on FanDuel, and he is
59.
59 on DraftKings, which is really nice.
Yeah, man. I love Joyk this week too. Jets at Titans.
Ew.
No. Just pretty much Delaney Walker, and that's it, man.
I think that the case can be made to play Chris Johnson in daily leagues.
Yeah. I hear
Stop it right
No,
now.
no, he's right though.
I know, but man.
Narrative Street, baby.
Not just the narrative.
Let's hold hands and walk down it.
Yeah, the narrative plays some role in my prediction here, but I just think that Titans' run defense is one of the most the ugliest things I've seen in a long time. They're one of the units that really stands out as one, the worst unit, the worst run defense by far to me. So I just think you can really get some traction there, and Chris Johnson's played a lot in recent weeks as well.
I guess as a guy that was all in on Trent Richardson a couple weeks ago, I can't really say anything. So.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's just a week you don't want to play really anybody. I could see you maybe playing Chris Ivory too, but yeah, you're getting desperate.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about these two defenses? I mean, they're both bad defenses, but they're both a good matchup. It's really like a weird situation. Like this game could be like 10-7, or it could be like 35-28.
I think the Jets are last league in turnovers, so I definitely can't go with their defense. And then someone mentioned last week they wanted to go Titans defense against the Giants and Eli, and I told them if you do that, you're going to be sorely disappointed, and they were.
Yeah.
So this is another really bad.
Yeah, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I'm off on those days.
I'm off too. I was just wondering what you guys' thoughts were.
Yeah. Oh, God, what an awful game. But anyways, Broncos and Chargers, this one's pretty straightforward. I think we kind of know how to handle both offenses. Peyton Manning's price is dipped, which is nice, but they're kind of a ball control offense right now, which I'm sure John Fox loves. C.J. Anderson's amazing, so you go with him. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, Rivers and Gates are really the only two that are in play for me on the Chargers side. What do you guys think?
I can make a case for streaming the Broncos defense. Yeah, even though they're not home in this one, I liked streaming the Patriots defense last week against the Chargers, and that ended up paying. That ended up paying off pretty decently. The Chargers' offensive line is garbage. It's one of the worst in the league. They're injured, and the Broncos' pass rush has really come alive lately. I think they're going to take advantage of that all game. So I like the Broncos D as a streamer.
Nice.
Yeah, just the way like I said, the way salaries shake out this week, it's kind of hard to pay up for quarterback. Salaries are still pretty tight outside of a couple obvious values, but if you're not someone that's privy to the Marcus Wilson or the Larry Donnell, then you might have a hard time finding cap space. So not too many guys that stood out this week as glaring options. Even with C.J. Anderson, like I said, the top guys, Le'Veon, DeMarco, Jamal Forte, have such good matchups. It's really hard not to pay for those guys when they're just a couple hundred more. So from a daily perspective, really the only guy that really stood out to me was uh, Antonio Gates on DraftKings, where he's only $4,500. Nothing else too glaring in this one.
Yeah, sounds about right. Um, so 49ers, Seahawks, don't play anybody on the 49ers side ever, ever, ever again this year. That's that take. And Seahawks, it's Lynch and Wilson for me, and their defense, of course. What do you guys think?
I'm just in a total agreement with you. What I've seen from Kaepernick this season has just been unbelievable. It's dated back to when I finally got a chance to watch him live when he took on the Giants at MetLife. It was unbelievable. The Giants had that was one of their worst coverage days, actually. They had some injuries in the secondary. It was time to take advantage of them. There were miscommunications, and he just led open wide receivers into the sidelines with just inaccurate, disgusting throws. I can't believe a guy who's 6'6", can run like that, has a rocket arm like that, can be this bad at quarterback. But he is. He's progressed. And I don't see it changing this week against the Seahawks. So that limits the entire offense, as we mentioned, Matt.
The 40 really haven't done him any favors, like the way they've set up the offense. They haven't been running the ball much. They've tried to put it in Kaepernick's hand when really he's just kind of a complimentary player. But that's a real football thing, which nobody cares about on the show. So, TJ, give us the daily takes.
The only guy I'm really looking at here is Marshawn and GPPs. It's a great matchup. They're favored by 10 at home, like we touched on earlier. But again, same thing. I keep touching on those top guys, top running backs have such great matchups. But he'll make for a nice pivot in GPPs if you're rolling out multiple GPP lineups this week.
Word. Cowboys at Eagles. I kind of want to throw everything I saw from Philly last week out the window. That was kind of just Seattle being awesome. That's just and for Thanksgiving Day too. I'm not taking that into consideration when I'm looking at this game. Dez should eat against these outside corners. Murray is always in play. I think there's better quarterbacks this week than Romo, and you'll probably have better options, honestly. Even though he should have a strong game, but I'm just saying that there's better DFS. There's cheaper options that you should go with. And Eagles side, you could get great production out of Macklin this week going against Brandon Carr. Like I think TJ mentioned at the top of the show. That's an easy play for me. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, you touched on Macklin, who's my favorite play based on the fact that he's got Brandon Carr matched up with him. But I also really like Jordan Matthews, and I'll tell you why. It's because I like this entire Eagles passing offense. That goes for Sanchez too. I think all the what I've read this week, I obviously cover these teams and all the East teams extensively, but is that the Cowboys are going to try to kind of not reinvent, but copy what the Seahawks did last week against the Eagles, which is kind of stack the front and play a bigger defensive front to stop the running game first and make Sanchez beat you, especially with him beat you in the intermediate and deep game. And the Cowboys can try that, and it probably will be somewhat successful against LaShawn McCoy, which is why I don't play him in any daily leagues this week personally. But it's not going to work against Sanchez for the deep. He'll be able to dial up some deep and intermediate balls because Cowboys don't have the secondary that the Seahawks have. There will be lapses in the secondary. So I actually like Eagles passing offense. I dislike Eagles rushing offense in this one.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I really have to apologize to anyone that reads my work or pays me for writing work for not writing up Jeremy Maclin as a value on DraftKings this week. He's only $6,100 and he gets the Brandon Carr matchup. I don't know how I overlooked that when I was writing, but that's a really, really good price. That's probably the one that jumps off the page most to me. DeMarco's obviously always in play. Sanchez is fairly priced on both sides, but a lot of people are going to be on. He's right in that Johnny Manziel range, so a lot of people are probably on Manziel. I wouldn't hate it if you played Sanchez. I actually wrote him up for Project Roto this week as arguably a safer play than Manziel. Other than that, Jordan Matthews and Macklin are really the guys I'm looking at here, and then Dez for sure is if you can fit him in, get Dez in there.
Nice. All right, last game before we get out of here. Saints at Bears. Both teams are sliding, so this could be kind of a weird game. I love pretty much everybody on the Bears. We've talked about that. Wilson, easy play at that cheap price. Cutler should be fine. Bennett, Alshon, Forte, roll them all out there. On the Saints, though, that's the troubling one. I don't know where the hell the points are going to go. But I like Graham to bounce back this week for sure. Other than that, I don't know. You guys got any? You guys got any smarter things to say than that?
I mean, we've touched on this one a lot, so I just really like this one from a fantasy standpoint. But yeah, I mean, as far as in addition to what we've already said, not much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm in love with the man that is Marcus Wilson this week. He's minimum salary on both sites. I mean, cash games, GPPs. He's the best value this week across the board. I'm going with my rare 100% ownership on a player, which when it's a minimum salary guy, you're not really risking too much.
It's too easy, man.
Yeah, so Marcus Wilson, you got to get in your. If you're building up lineups and watching this, put Marcus Wilson in right now before you do anything else. And then all the Bears are in play this week. Like I keep saying, the way the rosters shake out, you should be able to afford at least one top running back, if not two. Forte has one of the best matchups. The Saints are 31st in the league when adjusted for strength of schedule and fantasy points allowed to running backs. They've allowed over 170 yards per game, total yards per game to running backs. And then Jimmy Graham on the other side of the ball. Like I said, Chicago is the worst team in the league against tight ends by a very wide margin. He's almost $1,000 discount for Gronk on both sides. So if you want a tight end that's not Gronk, but don't want to go bottom of the barrel, Jimmy Graham is in play for me. He'll be in quite a few of my GPP lineups.
Right on. And we got one question from Jordan Hoover. He used the hashtag, so we're going to circle back to that one before we get out of here. Standard scoring, pick 2, Jeremy Hill, Joik Bell, Isaiah Crowell, and Kelvin Benjamin. A lot of good options. I don't hate anybody out of here, but I think I'm going to go with Joik and Benjamin. What do you guys think?
These are a tough one because there's all great options. We talked about why we like Crowell with Johnny. I also mentioned that he's in somewhat of a time split over the last 2 weeks with West. Actually, it was a full-time share over the last 2 weeks. Jeremy Hill's another guy I like because he's getting the full workload against the Browns defense. But I would probably go with Kelvin. Actually, I'd probably go Kelvin and Hill. I'd go Hill over Joik just because there are times where Joik doesn't get involved in the passing game and where he doesn't score, where he kind of just has like 80 yards, 60, 80 yards, and his matchup is pretty good, but I think that we're underrating. We have maybe have underrated the Vikings defense a little bit on the show. They put together a lot of decent games, a lot of pretty solid games, and that game could be lower scoring than we expect. So I actually go Hill and Kelvin in this one.
I'm going with Kelvin as well, but I'm going with Matt and sticking with Joik. If you look at the games that Joik has excelled in, it's really been those favorable game scripts. The Detroit's at home favored by 8 points, so when they get that lead, or they're in that situation where they have a lot of favorable scoring opportunities in the red zone, they've been looking to Joik especially lately. So I'm gonna keep riding that Joik hot hand and go with Joik and Kelvin.
Yeah, and Dan made a good point. Vikings defense is better than some people think, but they do struggle against the power running game, which is more of what Joik's about. So that's kind of where, I guess, if you look at they've let up more yards to kind of downhill runners, which is what Joik is. So, but anyways, that's it from us. Guys, feel free to plug anything you want to plug before kickoff, or any last words you have. Go ahead, Dan. You can start. Then we'll go TJ.
I got no plug, but thanks for listening again, guys. We took that week off, but we're glad to be back and happy to be doing this. Couldn't be doing it with a bunch of better guys. I just would like to plug. Actually, I'll plug one thing. Sportable. Those are the ones hosting us on this show. If you haven't checked us out yet, we all write for Sportable. We all do different things. I do what to watch for in fantasy, and I kind of talk about defenses now each week heading into the playoffs. TJ does values in daily leagues. Matt has reactions to the game. So it's really just a way to get a bunch of really good writers together, which is what Sal has done. Sal Stefano, who's organized Sportable, and it gets our opinions out in short little blurbs instead of the long writing that some of us, like I admit, I like to do sometimes. So it's a really nice way to just quickly search through the first 2 pages of it. It'll take you like 10 minutes, and you'll get a lot of good juicy nuggets out of it for your fantasy week. So yeah, that's my take there.
Yeah, check out Sportable. We've really ramped up the DFS content for the last quarter slash third of the season. We got Rich Rebar doing the newsletter with the DraftKings picks, and then we added JD Beckler to do draft day picks, and now we have Justin Bailey from RotoViz. He's doing our GPP plays of the week. So we got some really sweet DFS content over at Sportable. And it's the last milli maker of the year, so someone win $1 million and tell me about it, because I'm not playing it because it's negative EV and I like money.
Mm.
Yo, I've been straight getting that $40 though every week. Well, every week the millionaire was running, so I was cool with it. We'll see what happens, but anyways, that's it for us. If you want to read my stuff, you know where to find it. I'll do a rapid reactions blog with Sportable. Back again this week. Missed last week. Because I was out. I was out of this show. I'll be doing that again. It should be fun. So I hope you guys all talk to me over there. Talk to me on Twitter. Follow Sportable. You know the deal. We'll see you all again next week, and good luck to everybody.
Good luck, guys.